for joining us today for Montana Renewable Energy Association's Exploring Energy series. We intend to have a monthly meeting here on the first Wednesday of each month to discuss ongoing topics, important topics in energy, especially renewable energy. We are so pleased today to welcome Chéri Smith with us to give us an important presentation. Chéri is co-creator and managing director of Indigenized Energy Initiative. That is a nonprofit dedicated to empowering tribal communities to leverage a regenerative power of clean energy as a culturally appropriate means to diminish poverty, mitigate climate change, and build a self-determined path to energy sovereignty. She is a descendant of the Mi'kmaq tribe of present-day Northern Maine and the Canadian Maritimes. Her experience in the fields of renewable energy and environmental sustainability spans 2 decades and multiple sectors, including private, public, higher education, NGO, and within tribal communities. Chéri founded the predecessor of IEA, Covenant Tribal Solar Initiative, in 2016, driven by the desire to honor her own Native American heritage by leveraging her knowledge to bring the life-changing economic and environmental benefits of solar to Indigenous communities within the United States. Prior to founding Covenant, Chéri was leading workforce strategy for Tesla, following her tenure as head of workforce and training development for Solar City. Since 2015, she has been working with tribes and their members to harness the power of clean energy in a self-determined way. Chéri served as advisory board member for the Masters in Renewable Energy and Sustainability Systems degree program at the Pennsylvania State University and is an advisor to the Yale School of Business and Environment. She is an MIT Indigenous Communities Fellow, a Cordis Fellow, and a climate leader, trained by Climate Reality Project Chairman and former Vice President Al Gore. Chéri lives with her family on the ancestral homelands of the Narragansett and Seminole peoples. Welcome, Chéri. We're glad to have you here.
Thank you, Mark. Y'all, when I sent Mark my bio, I said I'm old, so it's long and feel free to edit. But he did the whole thing, so thank you.
Well, there's so much good stuff in there. I hated to cut anything out.
I know, but it's like long. I'm sorry, y'all. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Caroline and McKenna, who helped, and Andrew, who helped bring me here today, and all of you MREA members for inviting me to visit with you today. I'm honored to be here, especially because IEI, Indigenized Energy Initiative, formerly Covenant, was born in Montana, actually. So the state is near and dear to my heart. As Mark said, I am coming to you today from my home in present-day Rhode Island on the traditional and unceded territory of the Narragansetts. Let's dedicate this time to them and to the Indigenous peoples of the lands that you all are occupying now. So as Mark said, I'm descended through both of my parents from the Mi'kmaq, in English, Mi'kmaq tribe of Northern Maine, current Northern Maine and the Canadian Maritimes, but I wasn't born on or raised on a reservation. I grew up privileged kid in New England with mixed race European Indian grandparents and great-grandparents who taught us not to speak of our indigeneity because they didn't want us to suffer the discrimination that they had endured growing up in a colonized world. So my decision to dedicate my career to leveraging the power of clean energy to restore sovereignty and hope stems from my personal desire to honor my own Indigenous ancestors and to use my skills and experience to help offset the wrongdoing of my colonial ancestors. So I'd like to talk to you a bit today about something that you may or may not be privy to, and you're certainly not alone if you're not aware of the actual conditions facing tribes, especially in the Great Plains. The discrimination and resulting deprivation that Indigenous people in our country have endured over the past 2 centuries is It's well documented, but not often discussed. And we certainly can't do that topic justice with our limited time today. So I'll simply say today in Indian country, extreme poverty, addiction, depression, and suicide. There's Rick from Osheti Shako, and welcome, Wopalatanka, for being here. Depression and suicide rates are just terrible, and that all of those challenges are exacerbated by the ravages of COVID in the recent years. So the energy and insecurity and human suffering being faced by millions of Americans every day is what we call energy poverty. And we call it energy poverty, and that is often a term used to define areas of the world or even areas of our own country where people don't have access to electricity, period. We sort of refer to that term as when your energy bill, you have to choose to heat or eat, when your energy bill is such a burden that it causes you suffering, because in order to keep the lights and the heat on, in many cases, you have to choose. But so no more is this type of energy induced poverty, maybe that's a better way to define it, evident than on Indian reservations in the plains, where most homes are poorly constructed with little or no insulation, and they were built with, most of the time, very inefficient electric resistance heating systems. So it's true that with coal development came electrification to Native American reservations throughout the plains. However, with discriminatory energy practices being common in Indian country, Native people are sometimes charged double or more than their non-Native neighbors off-res for the same electrons just a few miles down the same line. This happens. It happens on the Northern Cheyenne Res and the reservations in Montana. It happens in North Dakota. It happens in South Dakota. It's anecdotal, but I have verified many times by looking at the bills of a tribal member versus a bill from a non-Native person down the same line. And the differences in the bills are sometimes like 7 cents for non-natives and 14 cents for natives. That's in North Dakota, for example, outside Standing Rock. So this is happening. We just received some funding from the Energy Foundation to investigate this kind of stuff and get some policy focus on it, so that we can help mitigate that problem, which a lot would be solved if we did away with that discrepancy. But before then, we need to focus on bringing tribes to a place where they can control their own energy supplies. Compounding this issue of the rates is that in the plains, unlike anywhere else, like you can't get away with this here, for example, if ratepayers fall behind in paying their bill, the co-ops who are supplied by behemoths like Basin turn off the electricity to homes, even those that shelter elders and the sick or the young. And this is particularly problematic during the harsh winters you all have out there. And people on reservations often resort to burning things indoors to keep warm. Wood on the res is scarce and expensive, and so people burn anything they can find: furniture, trash, tires. And when they run out of things to burn, people can die of exposure to cold. And this happens every year right here in America on reservations in the plains. It's happening. And I was inspired to found Covenant, which was the predecessor of IEI, after becoming introduced to a Northern Cheyenne tribal member, to the Northern Cheyenne tribe by my co-founder and longtime colleague, Dr. David Riley. He was a professor of architectural engineering and energy engineering at Penn State, and he took a cohort of PhD students every year from Pennsylvania and surrounds out to the Northern Cheyenne Res every year to build something sustainable. So they did a lot of straw bale building. They built a tribal college president's house out of straw bale. They built a community center that we just put 10 kW with storage at to use it as a emergency shelter. They built a daycare center, a welding shop for the college, etc. And while he was there, he became very, very close to Otto Braided Hair, who is a traditional leader of the Northern Cheyenne tribe. He was the director of their fire department for 12 years before I was officially able to bring Otto on as our head of Native culture. And he is an amazing human being. And what Otto taught me the first day I met him in 2016 was that the tribe's convictions to protect and preserve Earth were above all else. As you all probably know, the tribe sits on top that large, humongous seam of low sulfur strip mineable coal. And this coal under the Cheyenne homelands is worth, upwards of $90 billion. Yet this tribe has voted for 2 generations to keep it in the ground, despite the promised riches and despite the pressures by the now defunct Arch Coal to allow them to put that open cast mine and the associated railroad with it, which would have cut a path from the Northern Cheyenne Reservation all the way across the country to the Lummi tribe's homeland on the west coast of Washington state, where that coal was slated to be loaded on ships for transport to China. It wasn't even for use here in the US. So some tribes along that seam, such as the Crow, have opted to mine it. And for those that haven't, they need alternatives, which will allow them to uphold their sacred convictions to protect and preserve the earth. So we were founded to serve these tribes. And we believe that clean energy has the potential to completely transform the existing environmental and social and economic systems in Indian country and foster a vibrant return to vital Indigenous communities here in the US. Next slide, please, Caroline. So right now, a convergence of conditions is creating a profound opportunity. Oh, what happened? I just went away. There we go.
I don't think I was I actually sharing before that, Chéri?
No, probably not, but that's okay.
I don't think I was. All right.
It was
so
just the header page. So there's Red Rock Perkins and his family. And that's a build out at Standing Rock last year in October. All right. So right now, a convergence of conditions is really creating a profound opportunity. As we just discussed, energy poverty is widespread in many Native American communities, but that also makes energy and electric bills a really powerful place to intervene in a broken system, right? So by reducing money spent on electricity, tribes and their members can fulfill other basic needs. Like in a home stricken by poverty, when you take an electric bill that was $600, $700, $800 a month, and you cut it in half, or even eliminate it in the case of some solar. These folks aren't buying, fancy vacations with this money. They're buying food, clothing, medicine. It has a tremendous impact. So at the same time, despite the tremendous economic and political pressure that we had talked about, many tribes like the Cheyenne have strongly resisted fossil fuel development in favor of protecting the earth. It's part of identity as an Indigenous person to do so. And third, even though the fossil industry has been actively battling against renewables, the coal industry is failing, and solar, as you know, is now the cheapest form of new electricity generation, and as a result is more accessible than ever. So these factors have sparked what we hope will be an enduring shift in the economic and social situations in Indian country. Next slide, please. I am trying to get you back. I lost you guys, but I guess I don't need to see you. All right, so our approach, the IEI approach, we are an Indigenous-led organization by design. Cody Two Bears is our director of tribal relations. He's enrolled member of the Standing Rock tribe. Otto Braided Hair, as I mentioned, is enrolled Northern Cheyenne. Bob Blake, he is enrolled Red Lake Ojibwe. He's our chief operating officer. Cynthia Pacheco, our chief financial officer, is Tiano Indian from Puerto Rico. And we have over 80% Indigenous staff. So we very carefully take a culturally sensitive, inclusive, and systems-based approach to addressing economic, climate, and energy challenges with renewable energy and other forms of sustainable development. So we operate, we like to say we operate at the speed of trust. And it takes time to do that. It takes time to develop trust with tribes for all the reasons that they don't trust outside organizations, even those that have Indigenous people working for them. It's just, that's the circumstance we're in after 400 years, right? Or plus. So trust is at the foundation. Without trust, we don't go much further. Respect, we really work to treat each relationship and energy initiative with care and respect and honor for the particular culture of the tribe that we're working with, as well as for Earth. And we respect the wisdom that we learn from the tribes we work with. We learn more from tribes we work with than we teach. And we have seen it firsthand. Our work fosters healing and hope in communities that have just suffered for so long. And when you'll get to meet some of our solar warriors here in a minute, when I drive to a job site and I, go pick up one of our young tribal member solar warriors, and, they tell me that they had lost all hope. And, oh yeah, I was planning to kill myself on this week, but I'm going to stick it out because this actually might be pretty good. That has a profound impact on you as a person. And so it causes us to, it gets hard doing this work. It's really, it's gut wrenching, it's hard, but we know that what we're doing is so important for so many reasons. And that reason right there, that it gives a single person hope, let alone whole communities, it's really what keeps us going. So our approach really supports ancient belief systems while we're relying on this modern technology to solve some of these longstanding challenges. And we are honored to serve as trusted partners to tribes and help them to identify funding opportunities, apply for them, and work shoulder to shoulder with tribes to manage the funding and execution of these major projects, until such time that a tribe has the capacity to do this work themselves. That's our goal, is to work ourselves out of a job after all tribes that need and want our help have been helped. So, truly the central shift we pursue is the return of tribes towards self-determination above and beyond these divisive and reductive systems, which have been detrimental to Indigenous communities in the US and Canada and beyond for generations. So in other words, we're indigenizing, decolonizing energy. And, I often ask folks, why do you think that's important? And in my first answer is, how can a tribe be sovereign when they're dependent on the very construct that put them there in the first place for their resources? They can't, right? So it is important. It's extremely important. I like to share a quote from Otto Braided Hair, Northern Cheyenne. He's a traditional and spiritual leader, and he explains it this way, and I'll read this for you. For eons, Native people were self-reliant. The earth provided for all of our needs. The devastating effects of colonization, westward expansion, manifest destiny, and the deliberate extermination of the buffalo by colonists stripped us of our ability to provide for ourselves, causing us to be reliant on outsiders for our survival. I believe that the regenerative results of solar energy development will ignite a systems level change in the economic and social conditions in our tribal communities, leading to a restoration of our self-reliance and of hope. Coming out of a pandemic, this is more important than ever. So that I can't say it any better than he did. Next slide, please. So this is Darius. He is MHA Nation tribal member, 3 affiliated tribes working on a project on Standing Rock last year. Indigenous communities are standing up to the fossil regime, and they're leading the way in this just transition to clean energy. And we stand with them. We ask you to stand with them too. And while tribes are taking a stand against extractive fossil development, which threatens their natural resources and their lifeways, most tribes don't have the resources to propel themselves forward on this journey on their own. even tribes with vast financial resources, such as MHA. They have the desire, but not the expertise. So they're reaching out to us for that help, how to navigate this system. Next slide, please. So we purposely run on philanthropy. So IEI helps to develop the resources. We bring the expertise. But the most important role that we serve is that of a buffer. So we work with tribes and tribal members. And as you may or may not know, tribal culture is different. The way tribes conduct business, they're forced to have a westernized government in order to be recognized federally, but colonial practices, the standards and practices of Western business don't apply real well in a tribal community. And therefore things take an exponentially, they take exponentially longer to accomplish. And most energy developers aren't willing to learn about Native culture and understand why these things take such time. It's hard for big companies whose bottom line depends on speed to understand that a sense of urgency is a colonial construct. So we serve as that buffer. We come in and we do energy planning at no cost to tribes. We offer that, and we're funded by philanthropy. We're funded by MacArthur Foundation. We're funded by Energy Foundation. We're funded by the Walton family through Builders Initiative. We're funded by Christensen Fund. And we run on philanthropy so that when we procure loans or grants, federal grants with the IRA, we now will have loans. But when we procure grants for tribes, historically, developers have come in with a grant proposal and said, hey, tribe, we'll apply for this grant with you and we'll build the project for you, okay? And they say yes. And what happens is the grant is structured in a way that benefits that outside developer, and the tribe gets like a pittance for a lease on their homelands, and all the value is extracted. So solar can be just as extractive almost as fossil development if done in the traditional way. So we come in and we free up all those federal dollars by running on philanthropy to apply to more solar, right? Or, and we're not doing wind yet for all the reasons, but we can take more of that federal grant and apply it to actual stuff on the ground instead of our overhead. So we support tribes in project development and building their capacity. We manage a training program, which I'll talk about in a minute, called Solar Warriors. We have Native-led instructors. We collaborate with Chief Henry Red Cloud, who's on our board, who is a hereditary Oglala Lakota chief down on Pine Ridge. He's been running Red Cloud Renewable for 20 years. And our Solar Warriors currently go and train up with Henry's team on, we send them to Pine Ridge with a scholarship, and they come back with a solar certification and they work in their community. And eventually, in the program that we're piloting with Chief Dull Knife College in Lame Deer on the Northern Cheyenne Reservation, is that we're having Native trainers come to the colleges to train up faculty to deliver this training at the tribal colleges. So we don't have that travel associated. It works fine. It's just an added layer of complexity and many tribal members have a very hard time leaving their res for 10 days to go, leaving their family, leaving, they might have a job, leaving to go train. So we're working towards that. So next slide, please. So for this transformation in Indian country to happen, for it truly to be a just transition, this development must be done by Native people for Native people. As I just said, I keep saying it, renewable energy can be extractive if it isn't done by the people for the people. So let's think about that concept. The same model can be applied to any marginalized community in our country, in our world, any community. Energy serves as an entry point to solving many systemic problems in a community. And solar is a tool for economic recovery, for job creation and for poverty reduction, right? So our seed projects, we call them seed because we plant a seed, literally. You see one there, that on the left-hand side, that was at a home of tribal elders on Standing Rock. They are designed to introduce solar energy into a tribal community in a manner that promotes that trust, a rich cultural exchange, and grows the capacity of the local workforce to enter the solar industry. So each project is carefully designed as a strategic and really high impact action that helps introduce the community to solar and then starts them on this journey. So for example, like we donate the first system because it's part of trust building. It's when that 10 kW system goes up on the home of the Gates family here, to tribal elders that have 8 children they're raising, that none of them are their blood. Their kids are all left the nest. They're raising 8 children. Their electric bill was almost $1,000 a month. So when we chose to do our entree into the Standing Rock community with a residential system, we chose them. That system, you know, that's offsetting 100+% of their bill. So they're talking about the res about this, and people are like, what are you talking about? That's possible? I thought solar was hocus pocus. No, it's not. And this is how we spread the word. We train tribal members. Those are tribal members from 5 different tribes that you see in that picture that came together to build that system. And then they're going back home and they're working in their own communities if there's solar already going on, but they're also being hired by area solar companies, and they're eager to come back. So when we build a project on their homelands, they'll be back. And it's this beautiful thing where they're helping to train up other communities, other tribal communities all throughout the plains. So for now, our solar warriors receive the scholarship to Red Cloud, as I was saying, but within the next 2 years, we'll have trainers trained up at all of the partner colleges. So on the right-hand side there, you see Bob Blake, our COO, Cody Two Bears, our Director of Tribal Engagement, Chief Henry Red Cloud, he's on our advisory board, and then that's Otto Braided Hair there on our right-hand side, our inspiration. Next slide, please. So in Montana, Northern Cheyenne Tribe, after 2 decades of partnership with this tribe, we are excited that we have been officially selected by them and the Department of Energy to develop the White River Community Solar Project. The project includes 15 residential systems with storage for elders that were selected for their contributions to the community and their need. And then 3 small commercial systems, one on a water pumping facility, one on a Head Start child facility, and then one on a high school. And then depending on supply chain and the price of stuff, if I can squeeze it into the $4 million grant, a 1 megawatt or less utility scale system. So for a total of 1.25 megawatts is what the grant was for. So DOE is providing 3.2 million in funding for the project and required the tribe initially to seek 50% of that and to provide 50% of it in the form of a match. Most tribes don't have 50% of $4 million to put up as a match. That was a problem that's being rectified in this new bill. In the Inflation Reduction Act, the provisions for tribes eliminate, I think, all matching requirements, which is amazing. But this project, we're on the hook for it, trying to get it waived. But we committed, IEI committed to raising the match. We negotiated it down to 20%. So we had to come up with $800,000. Our team has raised thus far from individual donations. We're about 175,000 shy of 800. So we're almost there. And this is a first of its kind example of how a partnership, federal, U.S. Department of Energy, Office of Indian Energy, philanthropy, MacArthur Foundation gave us the seed funding to get this one off the ground, the operations side, and nonprofits can come together to be the catalyst that ignites this systems level change for a tribal community. So if Caroline can click on the film, we're going to play a 90-second video that's being used on social media to talk about this project, and you'll get to meet some of the folks. And keep in mind that the solar is being built by Cheyenne tribal members, our solar warriors.
And can everyone see the video? Okay, great. I'm going to hit play and the sound should work. Not working? All right,
Oh,
hold on
I don't-
1 second.
Yeah, I don't hear sound.
Oh, sorry, when I confirmed I was sharing sound, I accidentally unclicked it. All right, we should be good to go. I'm gonna restart it.
The eons. Our Cheyenne people had lifeways that have come through the eons, centuries. They learned to live in the environment and did minimal disturbance in the environment wherever they lived.
I think probably to all people, the sun played a significant role in our day-to-day lives. And we don't have that anymore. It's like we're turned around.
The Tzitzistas, the people of the sacred arrows, they believed that we were related to everything. So when you talk about the sun and its importance to us, it's our relative.
The lifeways of our old people need to be remembered, need to be followed, and their wishes for us to continue to live as Cheyenne, in the Cheyenne way. If our people solidified the foundation for renewable energy, it would mean that the coal would stay in the ground and our people wouldn't have to turn to it.
The tribe in 2016 passed a renewable energy initiative for the tribe to pursue renewable energies as hard as we could.
Solar energy offers us a chance to regain our independence as a nation and stop reliance on fossil fuels. It creates jobs and helps us move towards a clean energy for the next 7 generations.
Energy sovereignty is freedom. It's projects like this built, designed, maintained, and operated by Northern Cheyenne tribal members. The energy from these projects going to wherever the tribe sees fit.
I'm really all for these kind of projects. I think that's a good source for employment, that's a good source for sustaining our culture.
This is a life-giving force, and the sun is sharing that with us. And we can use that to share with others. It really is about giving.
I'm really proud to be a Cheyenne. I think it honors the sun that we use it in this way.
It is the reason why we must pursue renewable energies, so that the sacrifices of our old people will not go disregarded, and that we can live on in ways that will be friendly to the environment and especially the Cheyenne lifeways.
Indigenized Energy Initiative is partnering with the Northern Cheyenne to launch the White River Community Solar Project. This project will build over 1 megawatt of solar on the Northern Cheyenne Reservation in Montana. With this project, we will build multiple solar arrays, install 15 residential solar systems for the Northern Cheyenne elders. And we're also building a workforce by embedding training programs into projects. And we want to be able to continue to do this now moving forward in a way that protects our sacred sites, protects our water, and protects our animals, and protects our future for our future unborn and the generations to come. And that's what this White River project is going to do. It's a $4 million project. Northern Cheyenne was able to secure $3.2 million from the Department of Energy, but they need to raise 20% of that total project as a match. So IEI is committed to making this project a reality, and to do this, we need to raise $500,000. So I ask you to please help us spread the message. Please like and share this video on social media and donate what you can so we can make this project a reality. So I ask you to please join us in this initiative and this project and help IEI and the Northern Cheyenne Reservation become energy independent.
Thanks, Caroline. So this project was our flagship. You know, it took years to figure out how to get this to work. To the nuts and bolts and intricacies of bridging that gap between the federal government and tribes, and taking that money in order to create sovereignty. It's complicated, but these residential and commercial projects are being developed in a self-determined and in a unique way, so that on the Northern Cheyenne, for example, the benefits are being shared between the homeowners and the host entities. So if the resi systems will go on, the homeowner will not own them. They will have them on their property or their landlord's property, and the part of this energy savings from each month, half of it goes to the homeowner, the ratepayer, and then half goes back to the tribe into a revolving fund, which is invested and will be used to pay for more solar. And eventually this fund will become solvent. And the end goal is for tribes to truly achieve energy sovereignty. And if they choose to have their own utilities, that would be the penultimate goal. So again, how can a tribe be sovereign if they're going to be tied to colonial utilities and discriminatory practices? This is the future. The new legislation that has just been released has provisions for tribes that are momentous. They provide a way for tribes to really do this without having to have tax equity investors or seek predatory developers to get this stuff done. They can now pay for a developer who can then go bye-bye, and tribe will own these things outright. And this administration, our friends at DOE, Jigger Shaw, Matt Ferguson, Wahala Johns, they worked really hard. They listened to tribes, and they've done an amazing thing with this legislation. So read about that. I'm doing a white paper, and we're doing a webinar on that if any of you are interested. But next slide, and I think we're almost done here with the slides. As I mentioned, philanthropy supports our technical and administrative team and our capacity building efforts and the delivery of education and training and scholarships. This funding also allows us to provide support to tribes at no cost to them as we build these critical relationships. Philanthropy also allows us to leverage the much needed matching funds, which hopefully won't be needed anymore. Thank you all for allowing me the opportunity to have this conversation with you. I look forward to your questions, and collaboration and partnerships are essential to us to addressing these systemic economic and environmental challenges. And you're right in the center of it in Montana. And so we welcome yes, of course, donations, but if your organization wants to sponsor a project, for example, or just spread the word, like, we're grateful for that as well. So thank you. As the Cheyenne say, Nayaesh. I would love to have a conversation.
Thank you so much, Chéri. This is a wonderful work you're doing and a wonderful presentation. I do see that you've already noticed some of the questions and comments in the chat. Perhaps we could start with addressing Kobe's question. How do we ensure that a transition to electrification doesn't result in further colonialism, imperialism, and environmental degradation in the lands where raw materials are sourced from?
Yeah, there's a tough one. In the way that we look at it is that it's the lesser of the evils, right? So there is land degradation in the mining of raw materials for solar, but the net result is still far less than a fossil fueled economy, and it's getting better. The processes, we're making do with less, and I think we'll get to a point where people can feel good about it. And one of the key ways that we ensure that a transition doesn't result in further colonialism and imperialism is to make sure that Native people have a seat at the table when these decisions are being made, that we all have to speak up. As white-bodied people, we need to speak up for our fellow Indigenous people, because for too long, they're an afterthought. even when talking about their sacred homelands, so, and what they have left of them. So it's essential that we be advocates for tribes and insist that, you know, if there's a discussion happening and it's about development on or near tribal lands, that, you know, if there's no tribal member there, that we speak up and make sure that they're there at the table. And Rick had a question about mobile homes. No, exactly. Mobile homes are all over Indian country. And many people say, why are you not doing energy efficiency first, the low hanging fruit? We are, it's simultaneous. There's a lot of grants right now. Henry at Pine Ridge, as you pointed out, Rick, his grant is about energy retrofits, and we're going to be having the training programs at the colleges as well. The most immediate way to make a dent in folks' bills is efficiency and solar. And so we're doing them in tandem. What else? Oh, yes, I will post a link. Montana Energy Office from Miranda. Any Montana Energy Office operates a low interest revolving loan program for alternative energy, including solar. Oh, I will check that out. The problem with a lot of those loan programs are that they are not based, they're based on FICO scores. And many people in Indian country don't have FICO score. So I am actually going to the headquarters of US Bank on Tuesday to have a discussion about character-based lending. And I'm having this conversation a lot with institutions, with the government, and trying to redefine lending criteria to be based on character and things that are important in Indian country, not on a FICO score that many tribal members just don't have. Rural co-ops have traditionally resisted all distributed and grid type notions. How are the tribes finding this relationship with the co-ops changing? Really good question. It's changing really slowly. So a lot of times we choose to build things behind the meter to avoid a situation like I have in Standing Rock right now, where we have a 300 kilowatt array that was donated, and the offtake rate is PARPA 2.5 cents a kilowatt hour. And this array, the power is provided to Morgransu, the co-op, and they pay us 2.5 cents a kilowatt hour. And then they turn around and they sell that power to tribal members at 14 cents. So that's not good. and this is exactly what we're trying to fight. The tribes we've worked with generally are hesitant to make waves with their utilities. There's a big delta between now and when they are, or if ever they will be completely independent, right? So they don't want to piss them off in plain English. Like, so we come in and have these negotiations, and it helps tribes to have a policy expert at the table, you know, to have these discussions and say, yeah, that's not fair. And I think that there's some middle ground here. It's very slow. It's just starting, but we're working on it. And Energy Foundation is giving us some money to actually, some significant money to actually start a concerted effort to work with the suppliers. Are more the issue than the co-ops. It all comes down from the top. So excellent question.
So if you have any questions, please post them in the chat or raise your hand. Oh, here's another one from Chris. With the development of lithium-ion batteries, would the idea of moving more tribes off grid be one solution?
Yeah, it's a long time coming. It's going to be a while. That is always like some tribes. Kyle Alderman, who's the renewable energy manager for the Northern Cheyenne tribe, he almost died from drug addiction, decided to get himself together, get himself a scholarship, and he got the Udall scholarship and got a degree in electrical engineering and came back, and he is in charge of renewable energy for his tribe. And he wants that. He wants to be completely off grid with a big bank of batteries. Other tribes that we work with are concerned about batteries, from everything from fire to expense to the mining of the natural resources. It sure would be a solution. I mean, we look at Australia, for example, they're doing it, you know, Hawaii is depending on storage now more and more. I just, in all honesty, don't see it happening in the next 10 years at scale, but someday I think so. Here is the donation form, you guys.
Thank you for that, Chéri.
Thank you. What else?
Oh, Chéri, I don't know if that link actually went through.
No.
Are others seeing it? I'm not seeing it on my end.
It's on the chat, but
Oh,
is
it
it
is?
working? Yeah.
Did it again.
Oh, I'm sorry. You did a direct message to me. That's why I can see it. Need
Oh,
to
no wonder.
shift
That's
to
something
everyone.
might be going on.
I might want to put that to everyone. Good eye there, Mark.
There you go. Thank you.
So now we're working with tribes. We're starting to branch out and we're starting to work on bigger projects. We just signed an MOU with the Menominee Nation in Wisconsin. Beautiful people. They have a sawmill that's been in operation for nearly 200 years, and it's the largest user of energy for the tribe. So we're going to be powering that to start. MHA Nation, Mandan, Hidatsa, and Arikar Nations, 3 affiliated tribes, the White Shield band, approached us and said, we're one of the richest fossil producing tribes in the country, but we realize this is a finite resource. These are finite resources, gas and coal and oil. And we realize that they harm the planet. And so we recognize it's time. We need to take a step towards renewables. And they approached us and we just signed an MOU with them. That is like tremendous. What an example they'll set for other fossil fueled tribes and fossil developing tribes by doing this. And there's no judgment here. Like, we recognize this is not going to be, an instant transition, but any step in that direction is great. And, we're working with other tribes throughout. We have Quinault tribe up in the Pacific Northwest and other tribes in Montana, Red Lake tribe in Minnesota, Leech Lake tribe as well in Minnesota. And so we're spreading out through the region. And so if there's a tribe that you work with and they're interested, we are happy to have an exploratory conversation. Just, you can provide them with my contact info. Is it at the end? Did I put it there? I can't even remember. Let me put my email.
Chéri, when you begin new relationships with tribes, is it mostly them approaching you, or do you have a list of tribes where you're like, oh, this is a great potential to work with? Or is it you as middleman, as you described, or that buffer, a developer coming to you and wanting to work with someone? Is there any rhyme or reason to that, or is it kind of just differ over the years?
So it's been us responding to inquiries by tribes as we do this work, and it's in the news, and like tribal business news will follow us closely, and then tribes are calling, or on social media tribes will see us, and we have a waiting list. And so the limit to how many tribes we can help is our own capacity and how many folks that we can hire. So that's where funding comes in. And we are rapidly growing, and we're staffing up so that we don't want to become this giant conglomerate where the right hand doesn't know what the left is doing. That's not what we want to be. So slow and steady. Right now, like working with about 8 tribes at a time, that's about all we can handle at the moment. And so as we staff up, we'll be able to help more and more at the same time. But I don't see us working with 50 tribes at a time. The relationship is so important, the trust and the one-on-one, that I just don't see us getting to that point. We haven't had to approach tribes because they're coming to us. We are focused in your region for a reason right now. It's where energy poverty is at its highest. It's where it's of most concern. It's where people are dying, freezing in their own homes because they don't have heat. That's why we started there. where you are for a reason. And it's, we'll branch out from there. We've gotten requests, like we're working with, you know, tribes in New York and Florida and, you know, all over where we're having conversations, but our heart lives right where you all are.
Any final questions from folks?
I sure do appreciate your interest. Just the fact that there's a bunch of you here is encouraging, that folks want to learn more about what's happening for tribes in Montana and beyond. So thank you.
Thank you, Chéri. It's so good to have you here. We'll be posting a video on our YouTube channel, on our webpage, so that hopefully we can reach even more folks about the important work that you're doing, and maybe more folks can become engaged in your work as well.
That'd be wonderful. Yes, feel free to reach out, Chéri at indigenized.energy. I can put you in touch with any one of our team. Our website's new and kind of in development. You might hit the team page today and our web designer is working on it, but you can always reach me and I can put you in touch with any one of us. So Mark and Caroline and all MREA members, thank you.
Thank you so much. This was absolutely wonderful.